Sanaa stared at the twinkling lights across the street, her eyes reflecting the glow of a party she wasn't invited to, because it was happening in her own backyard. 15 minutes earlier, her father, Hadi, had told her gently, "No party this year, sweetheart. Money's tight. Let's be grateful for what we have." She'd nodded, understanding, and gone upstairs to finish a school project. But when laughter and music echoed from outside her window, she peeked out and froze. Her father stood in the yard, raising a toast with his friends, music blasting, tables covered with food, balloons floating. And at the center of it all was her half-sister, Zara, wearing the exact birthday dress Sanaa had dreamed of for months. Sanaa's voice trembled as she whispered to herself, "He said there was no money, just not for me." That night changed everything. Sanaa woke up that morning feeling hopeful, even though her father had said there would be no party this year. It was her 17th birthday, and she told herself it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were together as a family. Her father, Hadi, had looked at her kindly that morning and said, "Money is tight, sweetheart. We'll just have a quiet dinner tonight." She had smiled and nodded, understanding. She knew times were hard since her stepmother, Lena, had lost her job. Sanaa promised herself she wouldn't complain. That evening, as she worked on her school project upstairs, she suddenly heard laughter outside. Music started playing, and bright lights filled the backyard. Confused, she looked out her window and froze. There was a party happening right there in her own home. Tables were covered with food, balloons floated in the air, and people were dancing. At the center of it all stood her half-sister, Zara, wearing the same pink dress Sanaa had dreamed of for months. Her father was there too, raising a glass and smiling proudly as he said, "To Zara." Sanaa's heart sank. She thought maybe there was some mistake, maybe they were planning to surprise her. But when she walked downstairs and stepped into the yard, everything went silent. The music stopped for a moment, and everyone turned to look at her like she didn't belong. Lena gave a nervous smile and said, "Oh, we didn't think you'd be home, Sanaa." Zara giggled and showed off her brand new phone, saying, "Dad surprised me with it." Her father couldn't even meet her eyes. Sanaa tried to smile, but her throat felt tight. She stood there, surrounded by laughter that wasn't for her, candles that weren't hers, and a cake that carried someone else's name. She felt invisible, like her birthday, her efforts, her love didn't matter at all. Slowly, she turned and walked back inside, her eyes burning but dry. In her room, she sat by the window, listening to the sound of celebration below. She imagined her own small cake, the one she never got, and whispered softly, "Happy birthday, Sanaa." Then she blew on her empty palms, pretending to put out invisible candles. Outside, the music grew louder, but inside her heart, something had changed forever. That night, she realized her father hadn't just forgotten her birthday. He had chosen someone else's happiness over hers. And that was a pain she would never forget. When Sanaa stepped into the yard, everything froze for a moment. The laughter that filled the air disappeared as if someone had pressed pause. People turned their heads toward her, whispering softly. The colorful lights, the smell of grilled food, and the happy music suddenly felt heavy, almost cruel. Lena, her stepmother, was the first to speak. She gave a quick, uneasy smile and said, "Oh, Sanaa, we didn't think you'd be home tonight." Her voice sounded sweet, but her eyes said something else, that Sanaa didn't belong there. Sanaa stood there quietly, her hands trembling. Her father, Hadi, didn't say a word to her. He just looked away and awkwardly pulled Zara close, hugging her tight as if trying to cover the tension. Zara laughed, tilting her head to show everyone her new phone. "Dad surprised me with it. Isn't it beautiful?" she said, smiling proudly. Her friends cheered, clapping and taking pictures. Hadi smiled too, still avoiding Sanaa's eyes, as if pretending she wasn't standing right there. Sanaa felt her heart ache, but she didn't want anyone to see her cry. She forced a smile and said softly, "It's really nice, Zara." Her voice shook a little, but no one noticed. Everyone went back to laughing and dancing, pretending she had never walked in. The cake was cut, the candles were blown, and Zara's name echoed in the cheers. Sanaa stood near the door for a few seconds, then quietly turned around and walked back inside before anyone could see her tears. Upstairs in her room, she sat on her bed, staring at the moonlight shining through her window. The sound of laughter floated up from the yard, each voice reminding her that her father had chosen someone else's joy over hers. She looked at the calendar on her desk, where her own birthday was circled in red. For a moment she wished someone would knock on her door and say, "We didn't forget you." But no one came. Sana pulled her blanket close, closed her eyes, and imagined a small cake in front of her. She cupped her hands around it and whispered, "Happy birthday to me." Then she took a deep breath and blew out her invisible candle. In that quiet moment, she promised herself one thing. One day, she would celebrate a birthday no one could take away from her again. The next morning, the house was quiet. Balloons from the party still floated near the ceiling, and bits of confetti covered the floor. Sana tried not to think about last night as she picked up the empty cups and plates. Cleaning always helped her calm down. While dusting the living room shelf, she noticed an old brown envelope sticking out from a stack of papers. It had her name written on it in her father's handwriting, Sana's college fund. Everything she had seen, the party, the empty envelope, the receipts. During lunch, she sat alone under a tree, staring at her untouched food. Her best friend, Amiri, noticed and walked over, sitting beside her without saying a word at first. After a while he asked softly, "What happened, Sana? You look like you've been carrying the world on your shoulders." That was all it took for her to break down. Tears filled her eyes as she told him everything. How her father lied about the money, how her stepsister got everything she ever dreamed of, how invisible she felt in her own home. Amiri listened carefully, not interrupting once. When she finished, she wiped her face and said, "Maybe I just don't deserve anything good." Amiri looked at her seriously and said, "Don't ever say that again. You don't need their approval to be someone. You just need to believe in yourself." His words hit her heart differently. He reminded her how talented she was at baking, how her cupcakes always brought smiles, how her designs were full of emotion. "You have something special, Sana. Don't let them take that from you." That evening, Amiri showed up at her house with a small box of baking supplies. "Let's start something," he said with a grin. And that's how Sugar Bloom was born. A tiny idea between two friends who believed in second chances. They used the small oven in Sana's kitchen and started posting photos of her cakes online. Her first orders came from classmates who loved her creative designs. Cakes shaped like hearts, flowers, and even broken mirrors symbolizing healing. Soon, her posts began to spread. People online started sharing her work, calling it art with feeling. One cake she made, a simple white one with a single invisible candle drawn in icing, went viral overnight. She called it the Invisible Candle. Inspired by the birthday she never got to celebrate, messages started pouring in from people saying her designs made them feel seen. For the first time in her life, Sana felt truly noticed. Not because of pity, not because of someone else, but because of her own gift. Amiri smiled at her and said, "See? I told you. You don't need their party. You're creating your own." And deep inside, she finally started to believe it. Within a few weeks, Sugar Bloom began to grow faster than Sana ever imagined. Her designs were delicate, emotional, and full of stories. Every cake told a feeling she had once hidden inside her heart. Late one night, she posted a picture of her favorite creation. A white cake with a single invisible candle made of clear sugar, titled The Invisible Candle. The caption read, "For those who were never celebrated, you still shine." She went to bed not expecting much, but by morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A famous actress had reposted her cake on social media, calling it the most meaningful design I've ever seen. Within hours, Sugar Bloom's page exploded with thousands of likes, shares, and new followers. Orders poured in from all over the country, birthday cakes, wedding cakes, and even special designs for charity events. Sana could hardly believe it. Her small kitchen became her workshop. She would finish school, rush home, and bake until the early hours of the morning, covered in flour but smiling more than she had in years. Amiri helped her with deliveries and online messages, often reminding her to rest. But Sana didn't mind the hard work. For the first time, her life had direction, purpose, and joy that came from her own hands. Each cake she made carried a piece of her, the hurt, the hope, and the strength. People said her designs felt alive, and she understood why. They were made from pain that had finally found peace. Her success kept growing. One morning, she was invited to a live TV show to share her story, The Girl Behind Sugar Bloom. She sat on stage, nervous but proud, as the host asked how it all began. She smiled and said simply, "I started baking because I wanted to create something sweet out of something bitter." The audience applauded, and by the end of the show, Sugar Bloom became a name everyone was talking about. Back home, Sanaa's family saw her on television for the first time. Her father sat quietly, his face unreadable. Lena, however, was quick to change her tone. She began telling neighbors, "I'm the one who taught her everything about baking. She got her talent from me." She even started posting Sanaa's photos online, acting proud as if she had supported her from the start. But Sanaa didn't react. She said nothing, did nothing. She had learned that not every truth needed shouting. Instead, she focused on her dream, smiling softly whenever she walked past her logo, Sugar Bloom. From invisible to unforgettable. Deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Months passed, and while Sanaa's life began to bloom, her father's world slowly started to fall apart. Hadi's business, which once seemed stable, was drowning in unpaid loans and poor management. He had ignored the warning signs for too long, trusting the wrong people, and spending more than he earned. Zara's influencer lifestyle only made things worse. Every week, she bought new clothes, attended luxury events, and posted about vacations they couldn't afford. Lena encouraged it, believing that appearances mattered more than reality. At first, they tried to hide their problems. Hadi borrowed money from friends, then from the bank, just to keep up their image. But the debts kept growing until one day, the bank froze his account. The business collapsed completely. Creditors started calling, and soon the house that once hosted loud parties turned silent and tense. The laughter that used to fill the rooms was replaced by arguments behind closed doors. One evening, Sanaa came home after a long day at the bakery. As she stepped into the house, she heard soft sobs from the living room. She found Lena sitting on the floor, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. "Hadi, we can't keep living like this," she pleaded. "We're going to lose everything. Call Sanaa. She can help us. She has money now." Sanaa froze in the doorway listening. Her father's voice was tired and full of pride. "No," he said sharply. "I won't beg my own daughter for help. I'm still her father." Lena cried harder, but he turned away, his ego too heavy to let him see the truth. A few days later, Sanaa's phone buzzed. It was Zara. The message said, "Hey, just wanted to check on you. Haven't talked in a while." Sanaa smiled sadly. She knew Zara wasn't calling out of love. Soon after, Zara called, her tone sweet but uneasy. She talked about how tough things had been lately, how their house might be sold, how Dad's really stressed. Every word was a hint, a cry for help wrapped in fake casualness. Sanaa listened quietly, her heart aching. She wanted to help, but she also knew this moment was bigger than money. It was about choices. The same people who had made her feel invisible were now living in the shadows of their own pride. When the call ended, she sat in silence, staring at her hands. She still loved them, even after everything, but this time, she wouldn't rush to fix what they had broken themselves. One morning, Sanaa woke up to an email that would change everything. It was from the owner of a famous luxury bakery chain called Sweet Atelier. They had seen her viral cakes and wanted to collaborate with her to design a special line of story cakes, desserts that told emotions through art. Sanaa read the message twice, hardly believing it was real. They wanted to open a new branch in the city and wanted her to lead the creative team. It felt like a dream, the kind of opportunity she used to imagine when life felt too heavy. As she sat there, reading the offer again and again, she didn't know that miles away, her father and stepmother were facing their worst day yet. That same morning, two men knocked on their door and handed Hadi an eviction notice. The bank had finally taken action. Their debts had piled too high, and they had no choice left but to leave the house. Lena broke down crying, clutching the notice in her trembling hands. Zara, for the first time, looked scared instead of proud. Ironically, the address written in Sanaa's email made her stop breathing for a second. The new branch of Sweet Atelier was going to be built on the very same street where her family's house stood, the same home she had once walked out of feeling unwanted. It felt like fate was speaking directly to her. For a long time, she sat in silence, staring at the email and thinking about everything that had happened. The party she wasn't invited to, the stolen college fund, the loneliness she turned into strength. Part of her heart whispered that this was justice, that life had finally turned around. But another part reminded her that revenge never brings peace. When Amiri came by and saw her sitting quietly, he asked, "What's wrong? You should be happy." Sana smiled faintly and said, "I am, but it's strange. The new branch is right where they're losing their home." Amiri paused, unsure what to say. After a moment, Sana continued softly, "Maybe this is my chance to rebuild, not with anger, but with grace." That evening, she replied to the bakery's email, accepting the offer. She decided she would open the new branch with her whole heart, not to prove her worth to those who ignored her, but to honor the girl who once cried over an empty envelope. Life had brought her full circle, but this time, she wasn't coming back to seek revenge. She was coming back to rise, beautifully and quietly, in the same place where her light was once dimmed. The new Sugarbloom X Sweet Atelier bakery was almost ready to open. The glass walls sparkled, the pink and white logo shone above the door, and the smell of freshly baked cakes filled the air. Sana walked through the shop, checking every detail. This place was her dream finally standing tall, a symbol of everything she had built from pain and patience. Just a few days remained before the grand opening, and people in the neighborhood were already talking about the beautiful new bakery on the corner. One afternoon, while arranging display cakes, Sana heard the door open. She turned around, and her heart skipped. Her father stood there, looking older than she remembered. His hair had gone grayer, his clothes wrinkled, and his shoulders drooped as if he carried the weight of years of regret. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said softly, "Sana." His voice cracked. "You've done well. I didn't think I'd ever see this." She nodded politely, unsure what to say. He stepped closer, his eyes watery. "I failed you," he said. "I thought giving Zara everything would make me feel like a good father, like I was making up for my past mistakes. But I see now, I only broke the one person who truly cared for me." His words hung in the air, heavy and sincere. Before Sana could reply, Lena entered behind him, her face pale and tired. "Sana, please," she began, her voice shaking. "We made terrible mistakes. I was jealous, blind to how much you gave. We lost everything, and I know it's our fault. I just hope one day you can forgive us." Sana looked at them both quietly. She remembered the night they celebrated Zara's birthday, the empty envelope, the years of silence. Her heart still carried the scars, but it also carried strength. She finally said, "You can't fix a broken promise with words." Her voice was calm, not angry. "But I've learned to live without the ones you broke." Hadi's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly, understanding that forgiveness couldn't be forced. Sana turned to her desk and picked up an envelope, one that looked exactly like the one she had once found empty. She handed it to him gently. "Take this," she said. He opened it, and inside was a check, enough to help them find a small home and start again. He looked at her, shocked. "Why would you help us?" he whispered. Sana smiled softly. "Because I'm not who I was back then. I don't need revenge. I just needed peace." And as they left, Hadi turned back one last time. Realizing the truth, the daughter he once ignored had become everything he had hoped to be. Hadi unfolded the envelope slowly, his hands trembling. Inside was a check, large enough to clear their debts and rent a small apartment. For a long moment, he just stared at it, unable to believe what he was seeing. Lena leaned over his shoulder, and when she realized what it was, she broke into tears. Her sobs filled the quiet bakery, her face buried in her hands. "Sana, after everything we did, after how we treated you, why?" she cried. Sana stood still, her apron dusted with flour, her expression calm but soft. "Because I don't want to carry hate anymore," she said quietly. "You both taught me something important. Money comes and goes, but character stays. I lost everything once. Home, love, even my place in this family. But I found peace when I stopped trying to make others see my worth." Her words hit them harder than any anger could. Hadi's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the check again. He had spent years chasing comfort and pride, thinking he was protecting his new family, never realizing he was destroying his old one. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. Sana nodded gently. "Maybe not. But I'm not giving it because you deserve it. I'm giving it because I don't want to be like the people who hurt me. I'm choosing peace, not pain." Lena wiped her face, unable to stop crying. "You're a better person than I ever was," she said through sobs. I spent so long trying to prove I was above you, and look at me now, standing in front of the girl I once tried to break." Sana didn't reply. She just smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from deep healing. "You once chose her," she said, looking at her father. "Today I choose peace." Her tone was steady, her voice light but full of power. The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the bakery's ovens in the background. Hadi looked around at the shelves filled with cakes, each one representing sleepless nights, silent tears, and quiet strength. He realized that his daughter had built more than a business. She had built herself. Lena held the envelope close to her chest, as if holding something holy. "Thank you, Sana," she whispered. But Sana had already turned away, adjusting a tray of cupcakes near the window. She didn't need to say more. The envelope had already spoken louder than words ever could. Months later, Sugar Bloom was brighter and busier than ever. It had been 1 full year since Sana opened her bakery, and the anniversary event felt like a dream come true. The place sparkled with lights, the air filled with the scent of vanilla and joy. People from all over came to celebrate. Her team, loyal customers, and even journalists who once wrote about her viral success. Sana stood on the small stage at the center of it all, wearing a white apron embroidered with golden letters, "Sugar Bloom, from invisible to unforgettable." Behind her, the same slogan glowed on a banner. For a moment, she looked at it and smiled softly. It wasn't just a business motto, it was her life story. When she took the microphone, her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of everything she had overcome. "A year ago," she began, "I was the girl no one noticed, the one left behind on her birthday, the one who thought silence meant failure. But life has a funny way of turning pain into purpose." She paused as the crowd listened closely, eyes glistening with emotion. "The people who once forgot my birthday," she continued, her tone warm and steady, "gave me the reason to create my own celebration. Sometimes life says no party because it's saving you for the spotlight." The audience erupted in applause. Some clapped, with tears in their eyes. Others cheered, shouting her name. Sana placed her hand over her heart, feeling the warmth of every clap, every smile, every moment that brought her here. The same girl who used to bake in silence now stood under lights brighter than any candle she'd ever lit. After the event ended, she sat alone in her office, still wearing her apron, scrolling through photos of the night. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from her father. The words were short but full of emotion. "We watched your speech. We're proud of you." Sana stared at the screen for a long second, tears welling in her eyes. This time, they weren't from sadness. They were from peace. She typed back softly, "Thank you, Dad. This time, I believe it." She set her phone down and looked out the window at the glowing Sugar Bloom sign. The streets outside shimmered with city lights, but inside her heart, there was an even brighter glow. The girl who once had no candles left had become the flame herself.